The navigation console screamed warnings as Lieutenant Jake Morrison fought with the controls of his reconnaissance shuttle. Red alerts flashed across every surface, while the hull shuddered violently. Planet Shelestara filled his viewport, a swirling mass of violet clouds and emerald continents that grew larger with each passing second. "Come on, come on," Jake muttered through gritted teeth, pulling hard on the manual override. The automated systems had failed 3 minutes ago when something in the atmosphere fried his electronics. Whatever energy field surrounded this world, it did not want visitors. The shuttle broke through the cloud layer, and Jake's breath caught despite his panic. Below him stretched forests unlike anything he had seen in 15 years of space exploration. Trees with crystalline leaves caught the light of twin suns, creating rainbows that danced across valleys. Rivers of liquid silver wound between hills, covered in flowers that pulsed with their own inner glow. But beauty meant nothing if he could not land safely. The shuttle dropped like a stone, engines completely dead now. Jake strapped himself tighter into his seat and prayed to whatever gods watched over foolish pilots who ignored quarantine zones. The impact came hard, but not fatal. His shuttle plowed through a canopy of those crystal trees, the sound like wind chimes shattering in a storm, before slamming into soft earth. Jake's head cracked against the headrest, despite the restraints, and darkness swallowed him whole dot when consciousness returned. Jake found himself staring up at a ceiling of twisted vines and glowing moss. His whole body ached, but nothing felt broken. Slowly, carefully, he unstrapped himself and stood on shaky legs. The shuttle's rear hatch had been torn completely off, leaving an opening to the world outside. Warm air rushed in, carrying scents of honey and rain and something electric that made his skin tingle. Jake grabbed his emergency pack and stepped out into paradise. The crash site sat in the middle of a massive garden, circular and perfectly maintained, despite appearing ancient. Pathways of smooth white stone formed intricate patterns between beds of flowers that seemed to breathe. At the garden's center stood a fountain, but instead of water, pure light flowed from its peak, cascading down in streams of gold and silver. "This cannot be natural," Jake whispered, spinning slowly to take it all in. According to every map, every survey, Shelestara was supposed to be abandoned. The Botanical Research Station had been evacuated 200 years ago when the planet was declared too dangerous. Too strange, too wrong for human presence. Yet someone, or something, maintained this place with obvious care and love. A sound made him freeze, soft like tiny bells coming from the fountain. Jake's hand dropped to his sidearm, though he felt foolish drawing a weapon in a garden. Still, protocol existed for good reason. "Hello?" He called out, his voice too loud in the peaceful space. "I mean no harm. My ship crashed. I need help." The bell sound came again, closer now, and Jake's eyes went wide, hovering at eye level, suspended on wings that blurred with motion too fast to see, was the smallest person he had ever encountered. She could fit in the palm of his hand. Her skin shimmered with a soft blue luminescence, and her hair flowed like liquid starlight down to her waist. She wore a dress made of flower petals that shifted colors as she moved, and her eyes were enormous, filled with swirling galaxies of purple and gold. "You came," she said. Her voice like music played on crystal strings. "After so long, you actually came." Jake stood frozen, his mind struggling to process what he saw. I crashed. I did not mean to intrude." The tiny being laughed, a sound of pure joy that made the flowers around them bloom brighter. "Intrude? Oh, no, no, no. I have been waiting. I am Nixie, last guardian of the Sanctuary of Bonds." She flew in a circle around his head, moving so fast she left trails of light. "You are Jake Morrison, yes? From the human fleet?" How do you know my name? Nixie stopped directly in front of his face, close enough that he could see the delicate patterns glowing beneath her skin like living tattoos. The garden knows all who enter. It reads hearts, intentions, dreams. And yours. She reached out one tiny hand, pressing it against the bridge of his nose. Her touch felt like warm sunshine. Your heart is weary but good, lonely but strong, perfect. Perfect for what? Instead of answering, Nixie darted away toward the fountain. Come, come. You must be hungry, tired. The garden will provide. We have much to discuss, you and I. Jake found himself following, drawn by curiosity and something deeper he could not name. As they walked, or rather as he walked and she flew, the garden seemed to respond to their presence. Flowers turned to track their movement. The light from the fountain pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. How long have you been here alone? Jake asked. Nixie's glow dimmed slightly. 347 years, by your counting. Since the humans left and my people faded away. She settled onto a large mushroom growing beside the path, her wings finally stilling. I am the last. The others chose to sleep when they lost hope. But I waited. I knew someone would return eventually. Why wait for humans? From what I read, we destroyed most of your research, disrupted your ecosystem. Yes, Nixie said simply. But destruction is not the end of the story. It is only the middle. And middles are where the most interesting things happen. She stood, her glow returning to full brightness. You came seeking shelter. Instead, you found purpose. Me? I have been waiting for someone brave enough or foolish enough to enter the forbidden zone. Her smile could have lit the darkest void. Welcome, Jake Morrison, to the beginning of everything. Jake woke to the sensation of tiny footsteps walking across his chest. He opened his eyes to find Nixie sitting cross-legged on his sternum, her glow providing the only light in the shelter she had guided him to the night before. It was a dwelling woven from living vines, with walls that breathed and a ceiling that showed the stars, even though they were clearly underground. You snore, Nixie announced cheerfully, like a bear with a head cold. Good morning to you, too, Jake said, rubbing his eyes. Despite sleeping on what amounted to a bed of moss, he felt more rested than he had in months. How long was I out? 14 hours. The garden helps people heal. She stood and stretched, her wings unfurling and catching the light. I made breakfast. Well, the garden made breakfast. I just asked nicely. Jake sat up carefully, letting Nixie hop onto his shoulder before standing. Outside the shelter, a small table made of woven branches held an array of fruits he did not recognize. They glowed faintly from within, and when he bit into one, the taste exploded across his tongue like honey mixed with starlight. This is incredible, he said between bites. Nixie beamed with pride, settling near the plate. The garden gives what we need. It has sustained me all these years. Her expression grew more serious. Jake, we need to talk about why you are really here. I told you. My ship crashed. Your ship crashed because the planet wanted you here. She stood, pacing back and forth on the table's edge. Chalastara is not just a world. It is alive, conscious in ways your science cannot measure. It calls to those who are meant to find it. Jake set down the fruit, his appetite suddenly gone. That is impossible, is it? Nixie flew up to hover in front of his face. You ignored every warning, every quarantine notice, every regulation that said to stay away. Why? He opened his mouth to give the official answer about investigating energy signatures, but the words died in his throat. The truth pushed its way up instead. I do not know. I just felt pulled here, like something was waiting for me. Yes. Nixie's glow intensified. The garden sensed your loneliness, your search for meaning beyond duty, and protocol. It sensed a heart capable of bridging worlds. She reached out and touched his cheek with both hands. My people once shared a bond with humans, before fear and misunderstanding drove us apart. The garden was created as a sanctuary for those bonds, a place where different beings could find unity. What kind of bonds? Nixie's luminescence shifted to a soft pink. All kinds. Friendship, partnership, family. She paused, her galaxy eyes meeting his. Love. The word hung in the air between them, and Jake felt his heartbeat quicken. You are the size of my hand, and you are giant compared to me. What does size matter when souls recognize each other? She flew closer, until he could feel the warmth radiating from her tiny form. I have watched you, Jake Morrison. The way you speak gently to the flowers, how you apologize to the tree your ship damaged, the sadness in your eyes when you think no one is looking. You carry wounds deeper than any crash could make. Jake turned away, but Nixie followed, persistent as starlight. My wife died 3 years ago. He heard himself say cancer. I have been running ever since, taking every dangerous assignment, every solo mission, trying to outrun the emptiness. Oh, Jake. Nixie landed on his shoulder, pressing her small form against his neck. Her touch was warm and comforting. The garden called you here to heal, not to run anymore. They sat in silence for a long moment, watching the garden wake around them. Flowers opened to greet the twin suns rising above the horizon. Creatures that looked like jeweled butterflies but sang like birds filled the air with melody. Show me your world, Jake said finally. Show me what I crashed into. Nixie's entire being brightened with joy. Yes, oh yes, there is so much to see. She led him through passages he had not noticed before, into caves where crystals grew in formations that defied physics. They sang as Jake passed, harmonizing with Nixie's laughter. Deeper still, they emerged. Into a forest where the trees floated above the ground, their roots dangling in air thick with luminescent mist. This is the Dreaming Grove, Nixie explained, doing loop-de-loops through the mist, where my people used to dance with human visitors. They would shrink down using ancient technology, and we would all fly together among the floating trees. Why did it end? Nixie's flight slowed. Fear. Some humans saw us as resources to exploit, our bioluminescence as fuel, our connection to the garden as something to weaponize. When my people refused, the researchers became aggressive. We defended ourselves, which made things worse. Eventually, everyone left, and the planet was declared forbidden. Jake felt shame burn in his chest. I am sorry for what my species did. You were not there, Nixie said gently. She landed on a floating root, her legs dangling over the edge. Besides, hatred is a poison that only hurts the one holding it. I chose to keep hoping, to believe that someday someone would come who could see beyond fear and greed. Jake sat beside her, careful not to disturb her perch. You have been alone for so long. Were you not afraid I would be like the others? The garden would not have let you enter if your heart was wrong. She looked up at him, and in her eyes, he saw centuries of loneliness reflected back. Besides, from the moment you stepped into the sanctuary, I felt it. The pull, like two stars recognizing they belong in the same constellation. His hand moved without conscious thought, one finger extended. Nixie placed both her tiny hands on it, and Jake felt a surge of connection so powerful it nearly knocked him over. Images flashed through his mind. Nixie as a child learning to fly, her people dancing in celebration, the day the humans first arrived, the sorrow of watching her civilization fade, the endless years of waiting got, and woven through it all, a hope that never died. I feel you too, Jake whispered. How is this possible? The garden's magic, perhaps, or maybe something simpler. Nixie flew up to press her forehead against his. Maybe when two lonely souls find each other, the universe itself celebrates. They stayed like that as the floating trees drifted around them, human and tiny alien, sharing warmth and presence in a grove that remembered better days. Jake felt something shift inside him, the armor of grief he had worn for 3 years beginning to crack. "I am supposed to call for rescue," he said eventually. "My emergency beacon should reach the fleet in a few days." Nixie pulled back, her glow dimming. "Yes, you have a life out there. Duty. Purpose. But," she smiled sadly, "but the garden has chosen you as my companion. If you leave, the bond we are forming will hurt us both. It is not a trap, Jake. You can still go. But you should know what you are walking away from." Jake looked around the impossible forest, at the magic and wonder that filled every corner of this world. And he looked at Nixie, this brave ancient being who had waited centuries for connection, and chose him. "What if I do not want to walk away?" Nixie's glow exploded into brilliant radiance, and her laugh echoed through the grove like bells celebrating a victory. "Then come with me. There is one more place you need to see, where you will make your choice with full understanding." She took off, flying deeper into the forest, and Jake followed, his heart lighter than it had been in years. Behind them, the garden bloomed brighter, as if it too recognized that something beautiful was beginning. The crystal caves descended deeper than Jake thought possible, spiraling down through layers of stone that pulsed with bioluminescent veins. Nixie flew ahead, her glow reflecting off 1,000 facets, turning the tunnel into a kaleidoscope of light. Jake followed carefully, his boots finding purchase on steps that seemed to form beneath his feet only as he needed them. "How far down are we going?" he asked, his voice echoing strangely in the enclosed space. "To the heart," Nixie called back. "Where the garden was born, or all bonds are sealed or broken." They emerged into a chamber so vast that Jake could not see its ceiling, despite the light emanating from every surface. The walls were covered in carvings, images of creatures, from 1,000 worlds standing together, touching, celebrating. At the center of the chamber stood a raised platform of pure white stone, and growing from its middle was a tree unlike any Jake had ever seen. Its trunk was translucent, showing rivers of light flowing upward like sap. Its branches spread wide, each one holding flowers that bloomed in colors that had no names. And beneath its canopy, the air itself seemed to shimmer with possibility. "The bonding tree," Nixie whispered, landing on Jake's shoulder. "The oldest living thing on Celestara. It was here before my people, before the garden, before the stars arranged themselves in their current dance. Legend says it grew from the tears of the universe itself, weeping for all the loneliness scattered across the cosmos." Jake approached slowly, feeling the weight of ages pressing down on him. "What does it do?" Nixie flew down to the platform, her small form dwarfed by the tree's magnificence. "It offers a choice. For those willing to bind their lives together, across species, across worlds, across every difference that should keep them apart, the tree provides a way." She turned to face him, her expression serious. "But the bond is permanent, Jake. Once formed, neither can survive long without the other. Distance becomes agony. Separation becomes death." Jake's throat went dry. "That sounds like a curse. To some, yes. To others, it is the greatest gift imaginable. Never being alone again. Never wondering if you matter to someone. Two souls woven so tightly that they become a single constellation." Nixie's voice softened. "My parents shared such a bond. When my father faded, my mother followed within hours, choosing to sleep rather than face eternity without him. I am sorry. Do not be. They lived 3,000 years together, every moment filled with joy, because they knew they were chosen, treasured, irreplaceable." Nixie flew up to eye level with Jake. "I brought you here because you deserve the truth before you decide. The rescue ship will arrive tomorrow." I can feel it approaching through the garden's roots. You can leave, return to your fleet, and in time, the pain of our connection will fade. You will forget me, and I will return to waiting. Or, her glow intensified, hopeful and terrified in equal measure. Or you can stay. We can stand beneath the bonding tree and let it weave our lives together. You would gain some of my gifts, the ability to hear the garden, to understand the language of growing things. Your lifespan would extend to match mine, centuries instead of decades. And she paused, her voice trembling. I would finally have what I have dreamed of for 300 years. A partner, a companion, someone who chose me. Jake stared at the tree, his mind racing. Everything about this was insane. He had known Nixie for less than 2 days. She was alien, tiny, impossible. His commanding officers would declare him compromised, possibly insane. The rational part of his brain screamed at him to refuse, to leave, to return to the safe predictability of military life, but rationality had not kept him warm at night. It had not filled the hollow ache in his chest or given him reason to smile. Duty and protocol had not made him feel alive the way he had in these past hours, exploring wonders with a being who saw him not as Lieutenant Morrison, but simply as Jake. "Can I ask you something?" he said finally. "Anything. Why me? Out of all the people who could have stumbled into your garden, what made you decide I was worth this?" Nixie flew closer, settling into his palm when he raised his hand. "Because when you crashed, your first words after waking were not about yourself. You looked at the damaged trees and said you were sorry. You saw beauty instead of threat. And when I revealed myself, you did not reach for your weapon or try to capture me. You listened." She looked up at him with those galaxy eyes. "And because when you speak about your wife, your voice holds love instead of bitterness. You know how to treasure someone, Jake." I saw it immediately. Jake closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the decision pressing on his chest. Images flashed through his mind. His wife's smile, the years they had shared, the promise he made to her before she died to keep living, to find joy again. Would she want him to spend the rest of his life alone, honoring a memory? Or would she want him to open his heart to the impossible, to find connection in the least expected place? He thought of the emptiness waiting for him in the fleet, the endless patrols through silent space, the quarters that echoed with absence. Then he thought of Nixie's laughter, the garden's magic, the wonder of discovering new things with someone who viewed the universe with such hope. "If I do this," Jake said slowly, "if we bond, what kind of life would we have? You are so small. I am so large. How would it even work?" Nixie's glow shifted to excited pink. "The tree has ways, not to change what we are, but to help us exist together comfortably. I could grow slightly. You could shrink a bit when needed. The magic adapts to necessity. My parents were even more different in size than us. They made it work through creativity and love. And you truly want this? A life with me, a stranger?" She stood in his palm, her entire being radiating determination. "You are not a stranger anymore, Jake Morrison. In 2 days, you have shown me more kindness and wonder than I experienced in the last 100 years. Yes, it is fast. Yes, it is terrifying. But I would rather take this chance than spend another 3 centuries wondering what if." Jake felt something inside him settle, like pieces falling into place. The fear remained, but beneath it was a certainty he had not felt since before his wife's death. This was right. Impossible, illogical, but right. "Okay," he said, and the word felt like stepping off a cliff. "Let us do it. Bond me to you, Nixie. Make me yours." The joy that exploded from Nixie could have powered a sun. She flew up and kissed his nose, his cheeks, his forehead, moving so fast she was a blur of light. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, Jake, you will not regret this. I promise you adventures and laughter and so much love, you will forget what loneliness feels like. She grabbed his hand, tugging him toward the tree with surprising strength. As they approached, the bonding tree's flowers began to bloom brighter, and the air filled with a humming that Jake felt in his bones. Stand here, Nixie instructed, positioning him at the tree's base. And I will stand here. She settled on a root at his feet. Now we speak our truth. The tree listens, and if our hearts are genuine, it will accept us. Jake knelt down so they were closer to the same height. Above them, the tree's branches swayed despite no wind, and petals began to fall like luminescent snow. Nixie spoke first, her voice clear and strong. I am Nixie, last guardian of the sanctuary of bonds, daughter of Luminara and Theron, keeper of the garden's memory. I offer my heart to Jake Morrison, human of earth, traveler of stars, bearer of kind soul and gentle spirit. I choose him knowing he is broken and whole, sad and hopeful, lost and found. I will guard his happiness as I guard this garden, and I will never let him face the darkness alone. Tears ran down Jake's face as he felt the sincerity of her words wrap around his heart like warm light. He took a shaky breath and spoke his own truth. I am Jake Morrison, lieutenant of the Earth Fleet, husband to memory, seeker of purpose. I offer my heart to Nixie, tiny wonder, ancient hope, bravest being I have ever met. I choose her knowing I am choosing magic over logic, connection over safety, and joy over the familiar comfort of grief. I will protect her laughter, honor her patience, and spend whatever time we have showing her she was right to wait for me. The moment the words left his lips, the bonding tree erupted with light. Petals swirled around them in a vortex, each one dissolving into pure energy that soaked into their skin. Jake gasped as warmth flooded through him, rewriting something fundamental in his cells. He felt his senses expand, suddenly aware of every living thing in the chamber, feeling their quiet songs of welcome. Nixie cried out, her form glowing so brightly she was almost too brilliant to look at. Jake watched in amazement as she grew, not drastically, but enough that she was now the size of his forearm rather than his palm. Her wings expanded, becoming strong enough to carry more weight, and when her eyes opened, they held flecks of brown that matched his own. Jake looked down at his hands and saw faint patterns of light moving beneath his skin, similar to Nixie's natural markings. He felt different, lighter somehow, as if gravity had released some of its hold on him. It is done, Nixie breathed, flying up to cup his face in her hands, now large enough to actually hold his cheeks. We are bonded. I can feel you, Jake. Your heartbeat matches mine. Your joy is my joy. Your pain is my pain. We are two halves of one whole now. Jake pulled her close, cradling her against his chest, and felt the rightness of it settle deep in his soul. I can feel you too, like a second heartbeat, like coming home. Above them, the bonding tree's flowers bloomed in celebration, and throughout the garden above, every plant and creature felt the joy of two souls finding each other and sang in harmony. When they emerged from the caves hours later, hand in hand with Nixie riding on his shoulder, the rescue ship was descending through the atmosphere. Jake watched it approach and felt no regret, no second thoughts. He activated his communicator one final time. This is Lieutenant Jake Morrison. I am alive and unharmed. Log my status as voluntary resignation. I have found something worth staying for. The confused response from the ship captain faded as Jake turned off the device. Nixie laughed, the sound like music, and together they walked back into the garden that had brought them together. Behind them, the bonding tree glowed with satisfaction, its purpose fulfilled once more. Another lonely soul found, another impossible love born from courage and hope. And in the garden's heart, new flowers began to bloom, each one carrying the story of a human who chose wonder over duty, and a tiny alien who never stopped believing someone would come. Their story was just beginning.